there are so many challenges within this industry, and just stay the course. Keep believing in what you're doing.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study series. On this episode, we have Rick Rausch, who is currently the sales director and engineer at Westell Technologies, a role he's held since August 2019. With a robust career in wireless technology and sales, Rausch brings a wealth of experience from his position. Before joining Westell, he served as regional sales director at Communication Technology Services, and his background includes significant expertise in distributed antenna systems and in-building wireless solutions. We're excited to welcome you to the program, Rick. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a conversation with you about your role in all of this as it relates to marketing and customer relationship stuff. But before we kind of dive into the nitty-gritty of things here, I'd love to get a Cole's Notes version of your history and how you came to find yourself as a sales director and engineer at Westell Tech.
Oh, sure. So I've been a RF engineer and DAS engineer over the last 28 years, spanning from cellular network build outs and optimization to public safety as more of the last probably 15 years of my career. And it is changing. It has changed anyway over the years, working with wireless carriers to manufacturers and as in-building wireless integration. So kind of touched on three different major verticals with it.
And so, in your role as sales director, what kind of what kind of day-to-day stuff are you in charge of?
So supporting integrators and our channel partners, also called distributors, to align the correct equipment for putting systems together inside the buildings to enhance public safety for first responders. So their two-way radios work inside buildings.
Okay, so walk me through a little bit of what it looks like for somebody to become a customer of Westell. Is this something that's kind of like outreach bound, or would it be that I would look for you and find you, or how does that typically work?
Yeah, so there's a variety of ways. The customers that I support, they are stakeholders within the in-building wireless coverage enhancement for first responders. So whether it's people who do the engineering, such as putting together the designs or testing or commissioning and optimizing systems, and then you've got the people who are actually boots on the ground in doing all of the full installations. And then you have the channel partners that actually sell all of the equipment for in-building wireless. I help them get the right equipment for the job. I guess that's a good way to put it.
Right. Okay. So, in terms of how you work with the clients that you work with, what sorts of challenges are presented inside of the process of making sure that you can serve them to the highest level possible?
Ah, great question. So within the public safety side of the industry, there are the first responder community. So fire marshals, fire inspectors, radio network managers or directors. Those people dictate what has to be done for the systems to be installed and commissioned in the buildings. One of the biggest challenges is getting from them what is required, whether that's a local document or the fire code that they're enforcing, even like what the FCC bans are that have to be retransmitted inside the building. Getting that information up front can be a task for most of the integration community. See, some of the other things, getting what the details are in order to do the designs. So whether that's floor plans, square footages, the details of how to put together that equipment list. Sometimes those aren't readily available for the whether it's the building owner to give out or the integrator to receive. Sometimes there's challenges on the front end with those level of details as well.
Right. Okay. So what are some of the ways then that you guys approach solving that challenge? Because I imagine there's a lot of data that you got to collect is keeping it organized and sorted while you are working through what sorts of technologies they need or what sorts of tools. How are you managing all of that?
Ah, yes. So personally, I get involved. I mean, I know not everybody in my role within the industry does that, but I get involved by pursuing the fire marshal myself or the radio network operator. I help out the customer base, which is technically their job, but they are having trouble getting to those people or getting the details of that information. So I make a more proactive effort to do that. In some cases, I'm also assisting the local AHJ with, uh, providing some guidance on what it is that the code says and helping them to interpret the code so that they can put together a good document for what their jurisdiction will use to enforce the code. Another thing that I do is kind of on a personal level. I actually have a 4-hour training class that I do for first responders that I teach the code and basics of RF and DAS so they see and it helps them grasp the merging together of the code and the in-building wireless systems community of technology that it is so that they can make those decisions on their own on how to or what to enforce and how to enforce it.
I see. So there's a personal level of involvement that's necessary for you to uh, first of all outline what's necessary, but then secondarily to all of that, there's like an education component to that. Could you speak to that a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely. Um, I think it really is still today the biggest challenge I have seen, and there's even a group called Safer Buildings Coalition that's a not-for-profit organization that does somewhere between 22 and 28 seminars a year all over the country. They're usually about 5 hours long, where they also bring in and invite the first responder community and companies that do the full turnkey integration. They have memberships and things like that for manufacturers, integrators, distributors. They can all be part of this coalition in an effort to help educate the entire community. So all the stakeholders within the public safety and building wireless community specifically. This isn't for cellular deaths, so I'm kind of putting a little more focus on the public safety right now. And so then there's also people like me around the country, not very many, but there is an aspect of people that are helping train and educate the community of first responders because they're required by code to enforce something that they have no background in. They're experts with everything fire safety, but this is two-way radio communication systems. So it's dealing with radio frequencies and technologies that they just don't have the background in it, where I've been living and breathing it since the middle of the 1990s. So I feel like it's kind of a give back for my perspective, having so many years of doing radio frequency engineering, DAS engineering, and public safety as well. To be an educator was really a necessity within the whole community of ERCS is an emergency responder communication enhancement system, ERCES. So it's just a way that it helps those that take the classes, that they, as a first responder, can feel more comfortable with the code that they are enforcing.
Okay. And then, okay, so just so that I'm clear on the whole thing, I want to try to, with you, outline what this might look like, just so that I can kind of steer this in one direction or another. So working with the people that you're working with is to enforce code to ensure proper safety inside of buildings for first responders. And the challenge that comes up with that is that they know a lot about what they know, but not quite enough about the products and services that you have and how it serves them. And so the education, I guess my question here is do you see the education of these products and services playing a large role in the success of the company in terms of how many new customers or new clients that you take on?
Yes, there is a direct correlation. And what that is that, let's take, for example, a county. The enforcement starts at the state level, then goes to the counties. So every county within a state is the local AHJ or authority having jurisdiction. If
Okay.
they're not enforcing the testing of the radio communication inside the building, which is, of course, a code that they should be enforcing, if they're not enforcing it, then there's no system to be put into that county. But if they are enforcing it, then there are integrators and manufacturers that need to participate in helping those systems get deployed properly. So there's a few different aspects there where the education leads to enforcement, which leads to systems being put into the buildings that do not have radio coverage that's acceptable.
Right. Yeah, and I imagine that poses quite a danger to the people, the people that are in the building, like just regular occupants of the building, but then in the event of an emergency, the first responders now they're also challenged to be able to communicate properly to do their job effectively.
Yes, and there's been articles written, different facets of news, whether YouTube videos, there's a lot of different things you can research to find whether it was police, with active shooters, or a fire response where firefighters lost their lives due to no radio coverage, that they couldn't use their two-way radios. And were they able to be able to use their radios, lives could have been saved. So that boils down to, the reason why this is an industry that is so critical. It's a piece of equipment that first responders use that's just as critical as the other aspects, whether it's an oxygen tank for a firefighter or a bulletproof vest for a police officer. It's just as important for them to have two-way radio usage, so that they all communicate for their own life safety. The articles such as, the Uvalde, Robb Elementary shooting in Texas. And then here in Florida, there was the Stoneman Douglas High School back in 2018. So there's examples of different events that have taken place that kind of were showing us that two-way radio communication is critical for our first responders. The fire event I can tell you about, it wasn't real recent, but back in 2010, there was an event called the Charleston Nine, and that's Charleston, South Carolina. A furniture warehouse caught fire, and the firefighters were inside, and the battalion chief was radioing in for them to get out because the roof was about to collapse. And they did not have any radio communication, and 9 firefighters lost their lives because they didn't have radio communication.
Yeah, that really stresses the significance and importance of having this type of technology. So in terms of the process of enforcing and then connecting people with the right tools and technologies, what sorts of challenges come up in the way of managing the clients that you currently have and making sure that what they're deploying in their own buildings and things like that are effective? Do you have ongoing outreach to your clients, or is there a relationship management type of software that you use for that, or is a lot of this kind of like a hands-on, very manual thing?
Yeah, so there really is not any kind of software tool that is helping with the folks that do what I do. It's a very manual process. So I get emails every day from my customer base where they would be asking for me to put together an equipment list, and they'll send me the details of what they need, and I'll put it together and email it back to them. And, it's a, simple spreadsheet tool that we've put together that helps, get as accurate as we can, a rough order of magnitude of what that equipment would be so that they can put their budgetary numbers together. And that's where it starts because their customer is the general contractor or the developer or, some sort of entity that's involved with a new construction situation. There's also existing buildings such as public schools, universities, uh, right now in Florida, there's a lot of high rises that are being enforced that are existing high rises to get tested and have a system put in. So it's really the outreach from them to me, asking me to help them put those together. And sometimes they need a design. So, we have also a service that puts together a design that is a more accurate, detailed layout of where the equipment goes inside the building. So those are kind of the support mechanisms that we as a manufacturer would do for our customer base. But we don't know unless they send us an email that they have a project need to know that there is a need for that support.
Right. So, as I imagine that being a technology company, you guys are kind of on the forefront of a lot of different advancements, especially in terms of the physical hardware itself. I'm curious to get your perspective on the role of AI in the work that you're doing. Do you see a fit for it, or is it something that you guys are a little more cautious about?
I can't say that we're really using it much right now. I mean, maybe a little bit in kind of like writing marketing material, but not so much in the other aspects of, say, sales and business development or, uh, searching and dealing with any kind of finding customers that we don't already have.
Yeah, so let's kind of explore that a little bit because I'm really curious to find out like if there was a fit for something there, what would that look like? If there was a magic wand that you could wave and the right tool existed, how would you see yourself or your business interfacing with it?
Oh yeah. So we've actually been having some internal conversations about that. So we know we have certain target customers, but we don't know how to find them.
Right.
Um, there's there's different verticals within the public safety and building industry that they kind of work in a vacuum. Like if they're in a certain vertical, they stay in that vertical and they don't get out of that vertical. But if we can go into that vertical and connect with them, they could become our customer and we could start supporting them. The challenge is finding them.
Mhm.
The search engines that are in existence today, they aren't allowing the search to actually provide any results.
Yeah, we've kind of seen this rise and fall of the big Google machine and how I don't know what to attribute it to, but maybe it's the fault of capitalism destroying what used to be a useful tool, is now basically just um, as useful as the flyers in your mailbox. I find. I don't know if that's been your
Oh
experience, but
boy, that's a shame.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I get that. I really empathize with that situation of like, how do you find the right people? And you know that there are ways that you could serve them, but then, to communicate with them effectively and essentially convince them that there is a fit there, or at least inspire them to look for a fit, I think is definitely a challenge. Rick, to kind of wrap things up here, I'm curious to understand. What are the goals now that you guys are aiming at in terms of how you're growing the business and what you're implementing as as you march into the future?
Well, it is to reach everyone that, does in building wireless for a living. That is the goal because, we do make very reliable, quality, technically advanced equipment within the industry, more so than other manufacturers. And I believe strongly that um, I can help everyone. And within the confines of what we do today versus the way it was 10 years ago, the vertical of capability within the industry has grown from a small number of integrators to handle everything to a very large number of integrators. And many of the integrators that used to have, let's just throw out a number like 50 projects a year. Those integrators have about 15 projects a year now because the market has become so much more saturated with people that are, doing the labor of putting in systems. This just that heavily, it is a need to have a lot more companies. The challenge is, to have companies that are qualified to do them and then to actually, as a manufacturer like us, find out who those people are because of the way the verticals have, you know, it's become it like one vertical is now five verticals.
Right.
It's and those verticals aren't able to be searched and found for every company like us, like as a manufacturer.
Yeah.
That's really become our challenge is getting into all those other verticals.
Yeah, well, and that's an such a huge goal too, to look forward and look at what are other areas of implementation where we could take this technology or these tools and get them in the hands of the right people. And the work that you're doing, I am I really do admire, just given the nature of some of the stories that you've shared, Rick. I think that there's huge potential and a lot of promising things that are coming down the pipeline in terms of our abilities collectively to find and join forces with the right people and collaborate on some of these things. And so, um, as you kind of look forward at some of those opportunities, what are you most excited about? What looks most appealing to you?
The existing buildings, so high rises that are existing, public school districts, universities and colleges, the higher education, they're definitely putting more of a focus with budgets to get in building wireless put in. And I say this having, I have one of my sons is still in college. But having been involved with, three kids through college and also, in within my career having universities and colleges that I have been intimately involved with in building wireless, I just see so much benefit for the safety within whether it's cell phone usage or first responder two-way radio. This industry just brings so much safety and connectivity that it is really a passion since the early 90s. I had an event that I supported the FBI. There's a whole nother story with that, but it really meant a lot to me being able to participate with the FBI to do what we did. And I was really the only person within our organization as a young telecom RF engineer that evaluated how to locate a human being that made a big impact on me personally. And I think that played a big role in within my life going forward to today, that the education and the collaboration within all the stakeholders of the two-way radio enhancement and cellular world, um, being able to help everybody stay connected is a very meaningful and critical aspect in our society today.
Yeah, that firsthand experience of being involved in what I'm assuming is, some life-saving measures that you played a role in. I think that can definitely leave a lasting impact, and I see how that would drive you to keep pursuing this in such a passionate and meaningful way, Rick. I really do admire the work that you've done. To kind of wrap things up here, you've been very generous with your time, Rick, and very grateful for that. If I could get from you maybe one piece of advice for others that are kind of in a similar role as you, who are exploring, the possibility of technologies and sales and things like that, what would that piece of advice be?
Never give up. There are so many challenges within this industry, and just stay the course. Keep believing in what you're doing.
Very, very sound advice. The having the tenacity to push forward in spite of all the hurdles and obstacles that one might face along the way. I think that's very helpful. Rick, if somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further, maybe work with you, what would the best way to do that be?
Oh, I do either phone or email. Do you want me to say it right now? That there's
Yeah, whatever you're comfortable with sharing with, I guess, the general public.
Yeah. Well, my Westell email is rrausch at westell.com. And my phone number is 772-204-4316.
Beautiful. We'll link to all that in the show notes for anybody that's looking to get in touch with Rick. And if you want to get in touch with me and my team for any reason, it's nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Rick, thank you for joining me.
Awesome. No, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for being such a great host.
Thank you. And for all you listening and watching, wherever you're listening and watching from, thanks for joining us. And I will see you in the next episode.